Welcome back to the final mini episode where we're talking about retribution versus rehabilitation.
So let's get into it.
First question. Most of the time, people who go to prison do not reoffend, which means commit another crime. So we've got lots of people who disagree, saying that they do reoffend. I'd agree.
I agree with that as well, yeah.
Lots of crimes I've researched definitely is majority of them reoffenders.
And the statistics overall show that most criminals do reoffend, especially for crimes like burglary or fraud like that. It's quite high.
Oh, so it's high for like burglary and like those petty crimes.
The crimes that you can get out quite quickly from prison.
Yeah. Okay, so second question. Which do you think is a prison's primary aim?
Sorry,
I think most... sorry about that. I think we've got deterrence for most of them. And
then rehabilitation.
Yes. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree deterrence. I mean, that's why they make prisons so unpleasant and unlikable, because they don't want people to go into prison thinking, oh, this is lovely, I'll just stay here a bit longer, I'll commit a crime and come back. They make it horrible so people don't want to commit another crime and end up there.
But it also means, because of the rough environment the prison has, people can get rougher.
Yeah. And they become more worse because they're hanging out with people. Maybe they just, I don't know, committed a robbery, but the person they're sharing a cell with is a serial killer. You know what I mean? They're definitely going to be influenced by.
So does that mean rehabilitation would be better?
I think, if you look at prisons in I think it's Norway or Sweden, they live in villages, don't they? So they're not really being punished, but their rehabilitation rates are so high and they really don't commit crimes afterwards because they're in an environment which encourages them to integrate back into society. Yeah. Whereas if you look at the prisons in the UK, they're not really preparing you to integrate back into society, unless it's like a detention centre for youth.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's not ethical, but when you think about in a morally good way, it's rehabilitation would be the right choice.
Exactly.
Like people have a second chance. You're trying to reduce the number of bad people. But then when you think about the victim's family, they obviously don't want that. I feel like most of the time they want the person to suffer the same way their family member had to go through.
There are some cases though, maybe for, I guess you'd call it less crimes. For example, one crime where he was doing drunk driving and he killed the person in the passenger seat. Even though he was responsible for her death, the family called him up and was like, we don't hate you, we love you, even though we don't know who you are. We don't want you to waste your life rotting away in prison. We want you to make the most of the world and change the world so she didn't die for nothing.
Yeah.
Even though he was responsible for her death. Yeah. They didn't hate him, They didn't want anything bad to happen. So I guess there are exceptions like that. But if you're hurting, most of the time you want the criminal to go through the same pain as the victim.
Do you think then the victim's family should get a chance?
I think the victim's family should be in charge.
Okay, so at the same time, it brings about the question, what if innocent people are being...
Yeah, and what was if there's maybe a racial bias or something like that as well?
Exactly.
Then I guess that's where you have the law and you've got the jury and the victim's family don't decide live or die sort of situation.
But also the jury can be pretty biased.
Yeah, it's just very problematic.
Very, justice is not it's not black and white.
Exactly. It's very complicated and that's why so many innocent people do die.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard to maintain justice.
But I think when you think about in a surface level, deterrence would be the thing that people want.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. Question 3. Rehabilitation is influenced more by an individual themselves than retribution. Yeah.
Most people agree with that, yeah.
Because the person themselves has to change.
Exactly.
They want to.
And if they really do want to change, they will change. And that's why so many criminals, their sentence will get reduced from 15 years to 4 years because they're explicitly showing that they want to change. And then the people in the prison, their official authorities see it. And that's why they get the lesser sentence.
But then there will be people who pretend to be nice just so they can get out.
Acting. And I guess that's why they reoffend. Because they get the opportunity to reoffend.
Yeah, because having the chance to lower your sentence is good. Because people who turn good, they've got a chance to sounds
That's
like
what any
someone.
criminal really wants as well.
Yeah.
To be out of prison because it's
Out of
so
prison.
unpleasant. Yeah.
But then there are people who pretend, which is like you can't really tell what they're thinking.
That's true. And even if they get like a psychologist or psychiatric to evaluate them, as you said, you never know what someone's thinking. You can't do a brain scan and be like, they're thinking this, they're thinking that. You never know for sure.
Exactly. Question 4. Rehabilitative justice better accounts for circumstances of offenders.
So basically, what I was trying to get with this question is it really depends on the offender themselves, how much they really want to try. It's quite similar to the question before. But if the offender really wants to rehabilitate themselves, then they will be able to, sort of thing. But if they don't really care, then it's harder to get rehabilitative justice.
Yeah.
No,
definitely.
and I think that's why most people agreed or strongly agreed with that.
Yeah.
Should we go into that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we bring back capital punishment? Majority no. What do you think? What's your take on this?
The thing with capital punishment is
eye for an eye.
An eye for an eye, yeah. But also, as you said, with innocent people, that makes it a harder subject because if it was capital punishment, so many innocent people would be dying. But if we didn't have capital punishment, then they might just be stuck in prison. But then when they have the evidence that they are innocent, they can be taken out of prison and they can still live. Whereas with capital punishment, it's like you just killed them off. You didn't even give them a second chance, sort of thing.
What about like excluding innocent people? Do you still think it's a pretty...
Excluding innocent people, I think we should have capital punishment. We should. A sort of eye for an eye, like they had to die. So because some people enjoy prison. Some prisoners enjoy it.
I guess they do, but like I don't know. I feel like this is controversial. I'm not going to say it like that, but I don't know. I feel like the victim had to go through so much, and just killing off that person, they don't get to see the pain, like experience the pain of life.
That's understandable, yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like I personally think capital punishment is not very effective because they don't get to see how hard life gets. Like prison, most of the time is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And they need to like
go through the same pain themselves.
Yeah.
I guess when they're in prison, they also are trying to reflect on it. And I know for some prisoners, the thought of their crime actually agonizes them. It causes them a lot of pain.
Yeah. They should be like, they should get time to like think over. I know some people might think over and like realize, oh, this is bad. But then again, prison is such a bad place. Like which will cause them to reoffend. But at the same time, I think that they should realize what the thing they've done.
I think in some prisons as well, they also give the prisoners like opportunities to like read books and like do woodwork and stuff like that. But like even then, it doesn't seem too fair because they're given these opportunities to do stuff like that, whereas they're just gonna murder so many people and stuff like that.
Then again, like if you don't get them to do these good skills,
you can't reintegrate them.
Yeah, so it's like this can happen, but then
I think there is a reason why the UK doesn't have capital punishment anymore. So I think
I don't really. I would say no as well. To be honest, with capital punishment.
How many people said no? 17. There's only 6.
Okay, yeah, that's correct.
If you answered no to the question above, why?
It's morally wrong. Say someone stole bread because they need to feed their family and they lose their hand because of it. How is that fair? I guess, again, it depends on the severity of the crime. Obviously, you wouldn't do capital punishment for someone
who's done a robbery or something like that. It would only be like serial killer or someone who's done manslaughter, murder.
Yeah.
So it would definitely match the crime itself.
Yeah, and again, like innocent people, they've done nothing.
Exactly.
And they'll have to face that. Not humane. Yeah. It brings the question like, murdering someone is wrong, which is why they're getting punished. But then the law itself is executing someone.
Yeah. So like, the law tries to solve crime in a way, but then again, they're committing a crime themselves.
So it's not very humane to say. Rehabilitation is the way to rectify people and bring them on the right track. Most can change, but those who will not may see death as a relief rather than punishment.
That's what you were saying.
It could be seen as like a relief. I know people can be afraid of death, but then I think, I don't know, people need to realize how hard life can be.
Face the consequences. I guess when you're in prison, you don't have
freedom in confined to a cell 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, eventually, if you are human, the reality will hit you and your circumstances, and then also like, oh, I've got like 20 years left, I've got my whole life in here. And obviously, you'll never match the pain of the victim, but I guess prison is trying to match it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think it's because of their freedom that they make these choices, or like, I'm going to kill this person.
Exactly.
So when you take away their freedom, sort of,
Yeah.
is a good punishment, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people have the opportunity to change. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
rehabilitation.
Again, it depends on the person if they want to change. Based on stats from American states with or without the death penalty, those with it still have higher crime rates. So with the capital punishment, still have higher crime rates. Clearly, it doesn't work as a very good deterrent. Also, there may have been cases where people have been wrongly killed by the death penalty, and it was only discovered later they did not actually commit the crime. It's also not fair to give the jury the power to decide that, as when there are minor changes in the jury, such as there being more women.
Yeah. It's like a biased jury, racially biased.
Yeah, I think they've covered all of that. Yeah, like innocent people being killed, like the jury not being fair. It should never be the state's place to end someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we have.
It's again the person who murdered someone. It wasn't like they didn't have the right
place to do
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
But then again, I mean, if you see it from like a religious perspective, I guess they wouldn't believe that anybody has the right to end anyone's life, and the state is a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
It's still murder.
Exactly, it's still murder. But then again, you have these laws set out in place that kind of gives the state the right to kill people. Because if we didn't have these laws, it'd be so much worse.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand that it's not the state's way. But
Yeah.
then,
I don't know, because like the victim didn't have the chance to say like, no, I don't want to die.
exactly.
So then the criminal themselves now doesn't have the choice. Like, no, I don't want to die, but the state will make them do it.
That's why I feel like the victim's family, in some circumstances, should have more say in if the criminal lives or not. Because some victims' families want them to, some don't, and I feel like. But then again, they might have regret later on. Because if you're going through that like bereavement period, you're obviously gonna want the other person to feel the same pain you are. But then later on, you might come to it and you're like, I shouldn't have, had him killed off because he's still a human being.
Yeah. Some people will be wrongly accused. Yeah. Fear doesn't work as a deterrent enough. That is what killing people for. An eye for an eye makes the world blame and all that. Fear doesn't work as a deterrent enough. Yeah, I guess that like reoffenders clearly prison wasn't enough to scare them.
An eye for an eye makes the world blame them all.
Yeah. It just gives society the idea that killing is okay if you're justified. This is not great, as people may see being angry as being justified and they would kill more. Nothing makes killing okay, so why does going it in an organized way make it more okay than just killing someone in the streets? No human, however high up in the society they are, should have the right to end someone's life or decide how much someone else's life is worth.
Wow.
That's very
good writer.
I know. But again, wasn't right of the murderer to kill that person. I mean, I don't want the capital punishment, but still, when you think about it, why did they do that?
Basically, no one has the right to do it.
Yeah,
nobody
just
has
don't
the
kill.
right to do it.
Makes sense. Like, why is it okay when it's more organized and like put in a book? Yeah,
because it's still a crime. I mean, if you're defining crime, what is that? Something that goes against the law. But then, if the state is doing it, is it going against the law?
Yeah,
that's
very interesting.
It becomes legally complicated there as well.
It's inhumane no matter who the person is. Yeah. In the long run, it doesn't ever really achieve a positive thing.
It could, because right, hear me out. So there have been cases where people have like committed murders, right? And they go to prison, but then they get out early because of like early on parole, or they get out early because of good behavior or stuff like that. So they get out of prison and then they go kill someone else. So if they had been given capital punishment, that would have been one less person killed. So in that circumstance, it could have achieved a positive thing. Obviously, that's an exception, but I do know cases where that has happened because of my research. So,
I guess it has exceptions. It could doesn't necessarily have to be capital punishment. Like rehabilitation can also stop that happening. The thing is, we don't know. Rehabilitation is not 100% effective.
Exactly, and it depends on the person themselves. But then again, if they had been kept in prison and not released, then nobody would have been killed as well.
Exactly.
So I guess capital punishment isn't necessary. It's just the prison system really needs to be as fair and as just as possible. And if someone has been a serial killer, should they be allowed to go out on parole? If they've taken so many lives, even on good behavior, should they be allowed? But then again, they want their rehabilitation to help society.
And it's so hard to judge humans because people can change in within a simple thing.
Exactly. But then, like you said, they might be acting.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, as a psychologist, you might not be able to pick out because nobody can read someone's mind.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
unjust.
Yeah.
I suppose it's said.
It is unjust. It's barbaric. No one has the right to take away life. Just no. Capital punishment leaves no room for every wrong person being punished. Yes. To advocate for capital punishment is to take up one of two stances. Either the state never makes mistakes, or the state should be allowed to kill innocent people. The latter is hard to argue and not something I would agree with, so I cannot allow capital punishment.
I think the main argument against not having capital punishment is the mistakes. Yeah, and we all know there's been so many circumstances where it's occurred.
Like when there's a mistake as well, it clearly traumatizes the rest of the person's family.
Exactly.
Which could cause them to, I don't know, go in the wrong way.
In situations like that, there's two victims. One victim is the one that's been killed, but then also the other victim who's been accused of it and then killed. So no justice has been obtained either way. You've just caused extra pain on an innocent family.
Exactly. Extreme measure which may regret later on if new evidence shows that they So a lot of arguments for innocent people being.
And I think there's also a deeper social element to it. Like they're gonna be remembered because they were wrongly accused instead of all the happy memories. Or some people might still think they've done the crime even though they haven't. So their mark in this world after they've gone. I think that's quite sad to think about.
Yeah, definitely. It's so hard to be 100% right all the time. The person might have been at the wrong place, wrong time, just because of that.
Yeah.
So be fair. You don't fear yourself just being 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 a victim to a crime.
Exactly.
You also fear about being wrongly accused of a crime.
And their whole family must feel sort of betrayed by the justice system. They can't trust it anymore because they've lost someone who was innocent and wrongly accused. You wouldn't trust any of the authorities, then would you?
And that's not what you want.
Yeah.
Okay. Is rehabilitation a justified punishment? So we have mostly agree. Yeah. It can definitely be justified in the sense of a moral and legal way, I'd say. Don't think if the victim's family agree.
I think for the criminals themselves, it's more mentally a punishment, especially
rehabilitation.
Yeah. I mean, if they're really going to change their ways, that can be seen as a punishment, or if they struggle to do something like that. Because you really have to think about your crime then. And for some of them, they sort of commit the crime and they distance themselves from the crime. And then when they face up to the crime, then their emotion comes out. And you see that in the interrogation footage where they actually have to talk about the crime themselves and what they did. Then they start crying because then the reality hits them, or then they know they have to admit to it.
Yeah, because committing a crime is quite draining.
Exactly,
It's not normal. It takes a lot to do that.
Unless you have a disorder or something that makes your brain, your brain's wired differently, so you don't feel that emotion. Apart from that, it would hurt you.
Question 8. Prisons are a greater deterrence than capital punishment. So we have more disagree. We have how many disagree?
People disagree, so they believe capital punishment is a greater deterrence. Okay. Wait, I've interpreted that right?
Yeah. So we have 10 people disagree, and 7 people agree, and 6 people neutral.
It depends how scary you find death. Yeah. I think that's what I'd say. If you're scared of death, then that's a big deterrence. If you're not scared of death, then, as you said, it's relief for them. It's a way out.
Yeah, the thing is, people do know these exist, and they still commit crimes. So
I guess some people don't really fully take into consideration the consequences. They sort of just commit it, and then when it comes to them, then they're like, what have I done? like I've really messed up.
Like, I think crimes of passion, you just can't control your feelings, and you just like do it then.
But then again, there's no excuse for that, is there? At the end of the day, there's no excuse for killing anyone. There must always be a way out.
Yeah, because I don't know. I feel like serial killers they're not very scared because
They don't seem to have conscience, do they? They just, I mean, they don't feel guilty enough about it. That's why they keep reoffending and reoffending. Because surely, if they had a conscience, then they just wouldn't be able to cope with it.
no.
But then again, I know some criminals who they kill the people, right? And then they know the police is onto them, and they shoot themselves before the police come because they don't want to go to prison. They're too afraid to go to prison, so they think dying would be easier. So in that respective, capital punishment is actually
are definitely
a
good deterrence. No, yeah, I think mass shooting cases. A lot of the like murderers, they kill themselves before that.
Kill themselves, yeah, because they're just afraid to go into it. Sorry.
Criminals deserve capital punishment instead of having the chance of rehabilitation. So 10, we have mostly disagree.
And then
and one strongly agree. So capital. So they should have a chance of rehabilitation.
Criminals deserve. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess when people say we're all human at the end of the day, it doesn't excuse a serial killer or a mass shooter. Of course it doesn't. But people make mistakes, like drunk driving or burglary, stuff like that. That's easy to justify. But I think we're all human at the end of the day, and people do deserve a chance for rehabilitation.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to end it. Okay. Any further comments? No. Okay.
Yeah, we can't wait for it to.
Some criminals, for example, sex offenders, continue to commit their crimes even after leaving the prison. They're less likely to be affected by the height of their punishment. So, in my opinion, if the system were to change, they should go through at least 2 sets of rehab, and if they still do not show any signs of improvement, then they should be sentenced to capital punishment since they did not use their chance to improve themselves, nor are afraid of any level of punishment that every level.
I would agree, but then it also depends on the individual. Like, you can put someone through so many sessions of rehab, but they have to really want to change.
Exactly, and again, the whole thing of pretending. It's don't know, they can easily.
Exactly.
You might think they've changed instantly on the first session, but no, they just want to get out of there, so they do whatever.
They just do whatever they have to do, sort of thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like it also costs a lot to have to do all these sessions with so many prisoners.
In our society, we don't have enough money for that. I mean, obviously, ideal world, you would have all these sets of rehabilitation, and you would have the prison section off by like the crimes as well, so they're not mixing with people who've committed worse crimes than them. But I know a lot of prisons don't have enough prison officers as well. So
yeah, it's definitely difficult. I mean, that's a good way to think. Like, there are different steps. If people were 100% honest and we had the money, this would be like a good way.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's hard. If I don't know if you've heard of it, but Troy Davies' case is an interesting and pretty sad one to look at about a situation where the death penalty was.
I have to research that one. Yeah. For
that. Not only the goal of prison should change, but the very design choices in making prisons.
Yeah, so I think section it out based on like crimes and maybe I guess age as well. One thing that annoys me in prison system is when you turn 18, like it could even be the day of your birthday, they move you to the adult prison. I honestly think that's too young to be mixing with like 50-year-old men that have committed atrocious crimes. Like, no.
Yeah, because like that environment can really sort of mold
exactly
you can turn into.
And like some kids at 18, they might still be like really small and like they're still quite immature, and then they're mixing
rehabilitation.
Exactly in the detention center, but then they go to somewhere where there's like old men, like obviously women prisons as well, but it's just no. I think at least an older age or like just a separate prison from like 18 to 25, because your brain's not fully developed until you're 25. So they're 18, they're going into these really rough prisons, and their brain's still developing, so they have big potential to become even worse.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely agree. Okay, next one. The extent of the crime gives majority of the weight to the decision made, for example, giving a criminal who committed rape rehabilitation. I do not think I'm morally Right, therefore in this scenario, I'd argue no, again, the context and like the parameters sort of thing. I mean, I guess you don't have to go straight to capital punishment. I still think prisons are good deterrents, but at the
Because
same
they have
time,
scarred that person for life.
yeah, but at the same time, this person might be like completely numb or emotionless. The prisons can't do anything to them.
Exactly. But then also, like, you're wasting your money on them as well.
Yeah,
Because, you
no.
know, isn't it from taxes it goes to prison?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, it's also that question, should we be paying for criminals to live, to eat, to drink, to have a shelter over their head? Some of them get degrees while they're in prison. You know, why are we paying for these people that have killed people to do that?
Yeah, when there's like that money could be used for like people with potential.
Exactly.
Like,
Or even like homeless people they see on the streets who, I mean, they haven't committed the crimes.
yeah.
Which, like, if they had, they'd be in prison. So, like, is it a good use of your money as well? But, you know, society set up like that.
I think the prisoners with shorter sentences or release date or in for a petty crime should definitely be rehabilitated, because we're letting these people back onto our streets, and the prison environment as of currently is not preparing them for that. If you treat people like dogs in prison, they will act like dogs in wider society. I think that's interesting, because like people who go like life imprisonment, they obviously know they're gonna rot here for the rest of their lives, so they do whatever.
Exactly, they don't care.
So, and I guess that sort of can influence the people with shorter sentences. Like they said, they do go back into society. So we want them to.
I guess some of them, I mean, when they know that they're about to get released, then they'll start doing good behavior. Because I think if you do bad behavior, they can add in like an extra 3 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Some crimes generally deserve death sentence. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of that.
Yeah. I guess that is quite hard to understand for many people. Yeah, I guess it's quite a lot of big words.
Improve that.
Yep.
Yeah.
In 10 years when we're doing the podcast.
Stay tuned for that.
But yeah, that was very interesting. It was very interesting. To see
There's a lot
people's
to say
opinions
about
are.
it.
Yeah.
And definitely a lot of debates involved around it.
Yeah, but thank you so much for watching it. I think this is the last one. So it's. No, this is episode 4.
Yeah, agreed.
It was fun. It was a good journey to see everyone's opinions.
And we hope you enjoyed it. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.